So here we are with another episode of Startup Horror Stories. We've got our fantastic guest on, Mark. Normally I blab too much at this point, and I don't need to talk too much because it's all in the name, Startup Horror Stories. So let me just introduce you to Mark. If you could tell us a bit about yourself.
Yeah, I'm Mark Baldino. Joe, thanks for having me on this. I think it's a fun, even though it's horror stories, it's good to share. I've spent the entirety of my professional career, 26 years in user experience design. I started in the consulting side of it and then went in-house into enterprise in the B2B world. And then started Fuzzy Math, which is my UX consultancy based in Chicago in 2009. And have been doing that with a multitude of clients over 16, soon to be 17 years.
So how long has the actual Fuzzy Math part been going on for?
Yeah, it's coming up on 17 years in April.
Wow. Okay. That's great.
I know. It's like I could have a kid that age, I guess. It's insane to me. It feels like a child in many ways.
So how is your child? Is it growing well?
It's good. Well, I think it's appropriately aged, maybe 14, 15. It would be like there's a lot of consternation and challenges and growth pains, not really with my child Fuzzy Math, but with the tech industry in general. And so it's a lot of figuring out what's going on. So Fuzzy Math is in a good spot. But I'm always looking over my shoulder. You feel a little bit paranoid because the market has changed so much post pandemic and just in the past 2 years, given the influx of AI and AI tools.
Yep, everyone's head is spinning a little bit, and I've spoken to a lot of people who pretend that they've got a good grip on this situation. But the more that someone seems confident about AI, the more I am a little bit skeptical about it, about if they're actually keeping on.
I would agree, or maybe get the other side of the equation, which is not a naysayer, but people who are ignoring it. And I think you just have to put your head in this, and you have to expose yourself at every level to the tools and the processes. And I encourage people to. And I've actually had some really good experience with folks I work with, clients and employees, who were kind of hesitant 2 years ago. Chat really blew up, and have now sort of embraced it a little bit, and have learned. And I feel more comfortable with the technology. But I think you're right. Anybody who feels like they have their a handle on it, ask them what they thought the future was going to be 3 months ago, and I bet they would have had a different answer from where it is. Like, it's just the nature of the beast right now.
But it's interesting what you're saying, actually, because there is, especially in the design world, there's the guys that are super cocky. Oh, I know exactly what's happening. I got my finger on the pulse. But there seems to be the other side, especially in the design world, where people either are in denial or they actively seem to hate it. It's almost like a political thing. They're like, down with AI. And there's all this thing about the water supplies. And I mean, I haven't really looked into that, so I can't really comment on that. But there seems to be with a lot of designers, there's this kind of subconscious sense that they might be obsolete, and there's this like weird kind of very political seeming reaction.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because the design process, the human-centered design process, user-centered design process, design thinking, like these core tools that designers have been pushing for better adoption in any environment, startup to corporate to enterprise, is around adaptability and problem solving. And they want their clients to use it. They want them to follow it. But if they took a step back at their own process and the tools they're using, they'd realize that they're not sort of practicing what they preach. They're not being adaptable. They're not problem solving around it. They're not embracing new tools and methodologies. Like, everyone wants to live in Figma. And the truth is, design is not happening in Figma right now. Early stage discovery design is happening in, LLM tools that are doing Gen UI. And I don't think design actually is playing a big enough role on that side of the equation early on. We're sort of now stuck at kind of the end of the process. And it feels very weird where if we're not careful, we'll be stuck moving pixels in Figma, and eventually Figma will go away and that whole step will be gone. And instead they'll be looking like, what can I do? So I think it is part political. I mean, I get the hesitancy for something that feels like it might take jobs away, but I
Yeah.
don't think there's an alternative. If you want to stay in design, you have two ways to go. And I think you are actually an artist, right? Like fine arts.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like my thing is like if people want to do art for art's sake, I'm not an artist, so I shouldn't speak, but I feel like there's that's available to people. But if you want to do it in a business setting and in a business context,
Yes.
you need to meet your clients where you are. And in some cases, even in huge enterprise companies that I'm working with, that people would say are slow and behind the times, they are further out ahead than the members of the design community in using these Gen AI tools. And it's like
Yeah.
you got to meet your clients where you are, and then you got to leapfrog them and get out ahead and help steer the process.
Yeah, that's interesting because maybe that's what it is a little bit. It's because people got comfy, even
Yeah.
though the tech world is still, still fledgling new space. I think a lot of UX and UI people, they saw themselves, they still do, they see themselves as artists. This is my art, and Figma is my canvas. I know where my paintbrush is. I know where my select tool is. I know where my I know where the curved corner tool is. So they're comfy, and that's how they express themselves. And when you interrupt it like that, and you say, "No, now you're using Claude Codex," I mean, some of these, my background's in tech, so I was a bit more prepared mentally for it. But a lot of these guys, if they saw themselves, it's like suddenly telling an artist of like 20 years who's been using paint, now you've got to use, now you've got to become a sculptor, or now you've got to. A lot of these guys must be really
Yeah.
it must put them in a really uncomfortable place, to be honest.
So, and like that's kind of I get it. I have empathy with people in the design space or people in the engineering space that are watching these co-pilot-esque tools and
Yeah.
delivering quality and like I get it is a little bit I get that it's a little bit scary. And the market for jobs right now is not great in general, but this is part of it.
Yeah.
But it's sort of like what's the alternative? You can close your eyes to it and pretend it's not happening, but it's
Yeah.
happening. And if you're not
Yeah.
part of that exploration, you're going to be left behind. But I think you make an interesting point about tooling because, like, I've been there long enough where the first tool I actually used to design UI was HTML, command line, Emacs. Like I was
Oh,
committing
wow.
code, right? And then it moved to Visio, who had the Microsoft set of tools, and then you're in Adobe. Eventually we got to Figma. And it's like those transitions were really hard and interesting. And Figma is, I think it was up until maybe 6 months ago, a really good tool for what we were doing. And so people are comfortable with the paintbrush. They know where it is and they know how to use it. And I think it scares them that there's a little bit of a democratization of design is maybe not the right word. It's sort of like it's out of our control unless we want to have a say in the early stages of that design work. And that's going to mean getting out of the comfort zone and getting into a set of tools and experimenting with them, because I probably spend a quarter of my time using various LLMs to do business stuff, to client stuff, and actually do Gen UI. Like I'm doing a lot of, and I've just recently canceled my Chat GPT subscription and moved everything to Claude, because frankly, I feel like Claude is a better set of tools right now. And I think it's really leapfrogging the
For a
competition
professional, yeah.
from a professional, and even like putting a proof of concept, clickable prototype together, like the quality and that it can provide without I don't have to get into the code side. I don't have to worry about the HTML, but it can put together something really compelling from a vision perspective early on that would have taken weeks to do for a client in the past. And I think that can sell the design work, even if you want to do a little bit more rigorous design work after, or take that prototype and do some research. Like if we can use these tools early, we can then carve out time to do some of the really good work that people weren't willing to pay for because everything took so long just to build the UI. And so we have to look, how can you flip it and find opportunity with these tools? And again, as I said earlier, like meet your clients where they are.
Definitely. I mean, it's fun. It's so funny actually, because when I'm talking to you, I'm realizing, the theme of the show is obviously startup horror stories,
Yeah.
but we're living through Black Mirror. So
Yeah.
basically, whenever I have one of these conversations, the horror story is now. I mean, it could be a positive thing. There's definitely positive Black Mirror episodes, but but there's this kind of also, it's definitely kind of horrorish.
I'll be super honest. Like I
Please.
started my company in 2009. So this was the economic downturn. We started at a low point and we rode the wave and actually the wave of UX. When we first started the company, we didn't know if we were going to use the term UX. So this is 2009. It's not that long ago because it was like new. We used it internally, but does that sell? we decided to brand ourselves a UX agency and grew with that. It was really, we were fortunate, but we rode a tech wave up and up and up. And the first dip was kind of it towards the later end of the pandemic. And now we're kind of on the downside of this and it hasn't really come back up. But my point of being really honest is this is the hardest time I've ever experienced running a business, given the amount of uncertainty in the global world, the US economy where I'm based, like micro, macro, and just the tech space in general, in terms of like what tech companies are doing well and what aren't hiring. Like everything seems to be in flux right now. It is, I mean, I think it's a hard time to be a human being and be able to like live in this world right now. But this is by far, as a small business owner, so I have a startup. It's, even though it's a teenager, this is by far the hardest time I've had running my business.
Interesting. Yeah, it's also interesting when you just expand it to being a human, because it is the most confusing time of being a human there ever was. Because obviously we're men, and the thing is, with being a guy, a lot of your self-worth, regardless of whether you want to admit it, sometimes comes from what you're doing. You know, some people, they, you know, guys define themselves. I mean, women obviously do this as well, but men have traditionally just sometimes been reduced to their job, you know, especially at like wartime, which I guess we are technically at now. I do X. I am the best at X. I just do this all day long, you know? And suddenly, you know, this notion of being freed from this white collar job, it's like it comes with a good thing and a bad thing. You sometimes feel like this curse of retirement, maybe, where it's like, okay, if we did get to put down our tools tomorrow and we lived in this utopian society where we could do what we want all day, would that even be nice if we didn't have that self-worth of knowing that you're driven to be the best in one field?
Yeah. Now, I mean, I agree in that. I think for me, I've had to personally maybe make a little bit of a separation of, is my personal, how much of my personal worth is tied to the success of Fuzzy Math, of my company, right? Because
Sure.
then it was my baby. I mean, I have a co-founder who's amazing, so it's like it's a shared. We co-parent this thing, you know. We're so tied into it, and like I'm not like I'm proud of the work we've done. I don't think I'm the most successful business person, and I think like my business has been successful or failed based on, you know, some of my personal traits, right? If I was somebody else, it would be more successful. Maybe for somebody else, it'd be less successful. But I still try that success, and I'm very proud of that. I'm proud of the maybe 40 or 50 people who've moved through their design career at some point at Fuzzy Math, and I've had a contribution to it. But it's also when you're faced with existential crises of like which I actually think the tech market is right now, you have to divorce that and figure out like, where is my personal value going to come from? And for me, it frankly has been like, I enjoy solving problems, and maybe that sounds trite, but part of the problem now is growing a business in this industry. It's helping our clients adapt to the new world from a technology and AI space. It's helping my team understand that we've been talking about, where do designers have a place to play? And not just now at Fuzzy Math, but like, I think I have said many times, is like, if people want to push pixels in Figma, and I've been saying this for 2 years, you only have a few years left of that. Like there's just it's not there anymore. And so how do I help my team adapt to the new world, whether they're at Fuzzy Math or they move on to another job? Like, it's about solving a bunch of these problems. And that's where it's less about the financial success and maybe business continuity. And it's more like, can I still offer value to folks through problem solving? And I feel like even in times of turmoil, I can offer that.
Yeah, no, it's a nice way of putting it. Like, can I, you know, that is the eternal question. Can I still offer value? Am I still solving a problem? I mean, recently, I had a client, and it had the potential to be a longer term client. And I actually said to them, I can't take your money because I showed him Cursor. It was something to do with web scraping and blah, blah, blah. But I kind of got it running. I got it set up. And I said, look, you know, I can be here. You can charge me by the hour. I can change a bit of code here, change a bit of code there, which you might need to do on web scraping. But I just said, look, it's easier if I just show you how to use Cursor. You can pay me for 1 hour. I'll give you the code base that I've set up. And then if you need to change something, you type it in. You type it into the thing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess that also could be a potential thing. I mean, where you have, instead of a design system, like a living design system, you could hand over a design system, and then the client just types in, okay, based on the design system you've created, I need a new mini app that does this, and based on your designs, it could maybe knock something. Who knows? It's all just so
We're
sci-fi.
close. The connection between Claude and Figma is the best connection between LLM and a design tool, or that Figma has with the design tool. And then I also feel like design systems are kind of commoditized too. Like, how long before you say to Claude, I needed a thorough design system delivered in Figma, it builds it for you. And then you do the next thing, which is like, make a commercial grade. By the way, now build me an app that does A, B, or C. I think like that type of thinking and adaptability is what's really required in the workforce to figure out where, if I want to play in this space, here's where I can play and still offer value. And I think it's commendable what you did from a sales perspective. I don't do a ton of sales, but I have to do enough. And I learned in a course I took, which was great because it taught me a little bit how to be maybe a little bit more of an adult about sales, which was like any conversation you have in sales, it's sales. Sales is a service, and you're providing a service. And even if it isn't to pitch them or bring in money, it's to teach them something. And those things come back, whether that client does or not. Maybe you're sharing that story and somebody else will see it. Like, I think I do think that those things return to us when we don't you didn't say, oh, actually, this is a $50,000 project and it took you an hour, and you just, when they send you a request, you look at it, you put it into the tool and kind of come back. So I commend you on that, because I think every time we have an opportunity to help someone else out, which doesn't always translate into making the most amount of money, I think it pays us back, and it's valuable.
Yeah, hopefully those kind of things come back around. I mean, it's when you were talking there about adapting, I was thinking about, do you remember about 10 years ago they used to this might be a bit long-winded, but there was a big atheism movement around 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And people said, people used to say, well, they used to call it God of the gaps argument. Do you remember that?
I don't remember it, but
so basically,
maybe it'll jog my memory.
So basically the idea was, 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, God was everywhere. We didn't know how the sky worked. We didn't know how the water worked. We didn't know how anything worked. So God was everywhere. Everything was chaos, but God was in everything. But as science progressed, God became in smaller things. So we understood, physics, and we understood the chemical concoction, how the world actually works. And then we had to, God was still everywhere, but God was shrinking. The arena of God was smaller and smaller until it was like, why does this happen? Even, so it's kind of like that. It's like God of the gaps, and that's what it feels like. We're shrinking ourselves into. I told you it was going to be a bit long-winded, but we're kind of shrinking ourselves into.
Just I have a degree in theology, and I'm an atheist. We're in like the Venn diagram of interesting topics to me, and tech. Like, let's go. You need to follow that.
Perfect. But yeah, it's like what is a designer now? And now it's like I'm having to redefine what a designer is, and you're like, it's this now it's this kind of little thread. Even with my artworks, I had a problem with making just on a sort of conceptual point of making flat canvases of colors, just whether it was printed or whether it was a painting, because the AI images are so good now. So then I had to I'm constantly redefining what I am, and it's kind of chasing. I feel like I'm being hounded and chased around a little bit to redefine myself, which is, good and bad. How do you feel about that kind of thing?
I mean, I listen. I think I like the analogy. I'm glad we.
Good.
I'm glad. I'm glad we got there. And I think resilience, is pretty important in this day and age. And I think I can't tie it back to your art world because I don't live there, but I tie it back to my clients. Like, I had a conversation yesterday with my biggest client, and he's a great guy. He's interesting, sort of how he approaches stuff. And so, I just said, like, I talked about the fear in the market and running a consultancy right now and AI, and he is actively trying to inject AI into their internal processes and into the tools, right?
Yeah.
It's financial services space. And I just
Okay.
said that that's like scary for me. And we were doing some artwork for him for like some vision pieces. And we were using an AI tool, but we didn't tell him we were. And he said, if you weren't using an AI tool, I would not be offended. I feel like you were overcharging me, right? Like you're skipping steps. And he's like, but I'm not hiring you because you use the tool. Yes, I think you can get a better output than I do. It was probably my design.
Yeah.
You can get a better output than I did. But I'm hiring you because you can make sense of that output. And then he goes, I have a visceral reaction to that output, but I can't really explain why I feel that way, or I can't express it enough. So I need your team to help me understand my relationship to it. And then you describe why you did this. And then he goes, and then I need you to tell me which of these is best and why. And so he said, I hire you because your team is good at communicating around design to me.
Interesting.
He's a visual thinker, so he likes images, but he's like, it's because you can explain it and you can walk me through it, and then you can make an expert recommendation on it. So when I'm talking to my team about being resilient and where, like, if it is getting all into a bunch of silos, there is a little bit of a horizontal, I still think, around problem solving and human communication, and just moving people, helping people make decisions in big organizations and in startups, which is a different dynamic. Like, that's an important skill set. And you could be a designer and use design for it, or you could do it from another lens. But I think design has an interesting space to play in illuminating ideas in a visual way. And then people have a visceral response to it, right? And then helping them understand their response and helping them make decisions based on it is kind of a key role. And I don't think that'll go away. So I'm trying to advocate to my team to find some resilience there in how they communicate around design and how they story tell. Because I think that that's something, I don't want to say it's not going to be, the LLM can't do it in 2 years, but right now it's not very good at it. So
Yeah.
That makes sense. Making the dots.
Yeah, 100%. It's, yeah. And what do you feel? I mean, whenever I hear a conversation like that, it's wonderful. It sounds almost utopian, like we're having this open conversation and solving problems in real time. But of course, on the other end of that is the sort of junior designer.
Yeah.
Because if you are if all the designers are basically consultants, they're just talking to the client, talking to the LLM, trying to sort of apply their knowledge. The newer guys in the industry who aren't valued for their knowledge, how do you feel that, because you obviously hire a lot of these kind of designers, how do you feel that they fit in the equation?
Yeah, I still think you have to teach them to be problem solvers, maybe not at the level that they're handling executive comms or even key stakeholder comms, but I do think you have to work on the soft skills that they have, which they're not going to learn in any program that they have. I have a lot of empathy for people who started a design program 4 years ago or 2 years ago, and they're stepping into this market, and it's abysmal. And to your point, people want very senior people, and there's a lot of senior people looking for work. So I think it's very, very hard. But I think they have to, my advice to them, and hopefully their program has integrated, AI into it. They're not AI natives, but they're earlier in brain development than I am, that they can start thinking of how they can use these tools and how to be more flexible, and then still work on those sort of soft skills. And whether it is consulting, pure consulting, or just communication skills, I think if you don't have those, it's going to be really, really hard in the marketplace. But I don't have a silver bullet for that one, because I think it is pretty scary. And I think UX in general went through this boom of like everyone getting these boot camps and these certificates, and then there's a million junior level designers on the market looking for work, and then the whole tech world tumbles on its head, and it's like we're letting full departments go. Like, that is kind of apocalyptic. And I've talked to many of them who have opted out of the job market, both at senior and junior level, because there's not a lot of roles. But I still think working on our human to human skills is the best advice I would provide them, and using design as a way to facilitate those conversations. It is a little bit above tools, and then make use of the tools that you're doing now. One advantage that they might have is that they didn't spend 10 years learning. Well, Figma hasn't been around that long, but they haven't spent the last 5 years learning every way to manipulate Figma, which is basically the same IDE and layout and just a different as Adobe, like tools. And now we're menuless, right, in our world. And like it's a whole nother, it's a prompt and response. And maybe they'll be more flexible there. I don't know. I feel a lot of empathy for younger folks who are newer in their careers. It's probably scary.
Yeah. And how do you think, because this is just something, I'm just going to ask you this because it was just something that was floating through my head a few days ago. It's such a break with the past of design, because I was watching, I can't remember her name, was it Barbara or something? It was a documentary about one of the top New York designers. She worked at Pentagram, and she was obsessed, she was one of the pioneers of like typefaces, and they walked through her process of trying all the typefaces out and putting it through all the manual processes that they had. And I was just thinking the other day, it's almost redundant. It's like someone talking before and after the Industrial Revolution about how they would make a needle. It's a wonderful. It's almost like a, it's like a nice. It's like a safe space. Like it's like a pleasurable thing. Like how she crafted these things. But now when I think about it, it's like before I could gain something on a technical level from that documentary about her process,
right?
And now those things are they're just relics.
Seems great.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe it comes back, right? Maybe there is a refocus on time in craft and the process that people take and the deliberateness in that. Right now, these tools work really, really quickly, although you can make them do 50 laps for you in their head and come back. You can do recursive and iterative loops, but maybe craft comes back. There's a sense of like discernment that humans have, and refinement of what's coming out of these models. And I don't know, maybe we start to build a new way of working in the interim. And then people start to what we haven't had is a large scale failure of a commercial product because it was done through an LLM, right? Maybe there's been some small features that have failed and stuff like that, but there hasn't been like an economic, because it's so cheap to do. There hasn't been like an economic failure yet, or like a huge data breach. I mean, imagine if all chat's history is like, people are going to ruin lives, right? So there is could be an apocalyptic event here that could happen, and given human nature, probably will. But until that happens, and that would probably return people back to the sense of craft. So I think in the interim, it is around discernment and refinement, and that's kind of the role we play. But I still love things like that, like studio environments and drafting tables, and that sense of, and I don't know much about that world, but that idea of the painstaking decisions you're making if you're a Pentagram and you're deciding a new logo and a new visual system. I think that stuff is really cool, but it does move it more into the world of fine arts at this point, and only a certain number of people are going to pay for that, because a startup can get a logo for what you used to pay Fiverr or some freelancer app, give them $100. Now you're paying Claude, I don't know, $20 a month, and you can get 1,000 logos if you wanted it. So it's I don't know if I'm
no,
it's just interesting.
It makes a lot of sense. I mean, part of it, I don't mean to be so pessimistic, but there is as the word apocalypse keeps surfacing.
I think I've said it twice, so if anything, I'm more pessimistic. Sorry, Joe.
But there was, I think half of the advertising, I mean, I'm picking advertising randomly, but half of the advertising industry was about the output, and half of it was about the prestige and this notion of that being an advertising world. If you think about Mad Men and how we kind of fetishized and this luxurious lifestyle of the advertisers. And I mean, once we take it down to that level of just hitting the button, try again on a logo until it does something that we say, okay, that one. Once we're atomized to that level, and we lose that kind of the glamour of the design, how do you? I mean, maybe you're right. Maybe it will move into more crafting because we're neglecting what we liked about it in the first place.
Yeah, well, I mean, you overlapping with the kind of commercial components of it, it makes it hard to find clients that are willing to pay for the craft, which is
Yeah,
why I keep coming back to, is the UI at the end of the day what my clients are going to continue to pay for? Probably not. There is a level of quality that we can produce out of these tools that I don't think an engineer who hasn't been trained or product manager, but I think they can get pretty close, right? And if they're getting 80%, I don't know if I
mm,
want my job to be just to fix the 20%. So I think it has to be the things, or I think I go back to the soft skills and the discernment and the problem solving nature and just the communicative nature. Because I do think like pixel generation is a commodity now. It's so insanely cheap to, as you said, I'm looking at the StreamYard logo, which is, a duck, I think, but I'm thinking of that, like, that thing, that bird has the water in it, it keeps going back and just tapping the keyboard. It's like, it's this like rhythmic, like, as you said, just return, go, give me more, give me more. And it's like, without discernment along the way, then that it becomes a commodity. So I think it'll be a while before it comes back to the craft. Because again, I don't
yeah,
think there's been enough failures, and it's never been cheaper to put out an application, right? I can go to something like Claude Code, or I go to Replit, and for $20, I can push out a coded app that has a database in the background. And it's like, it's never been easier or cheaper to do that. And it
mm,
isn't until maybe people get sick of the quality or they're not making money. Like right now, the companies that are making money are the AI companies, but they're not the products and services companies. Like SaaS software right now is, going through a huge change. Like there haven't
yes.
been financial consequences to some of those companies because they've used these LLM processes. And I
Do
think it's
you think? Do you think perhaps that some of these the horror stories of the SaaS company? Because I mean, I saw this term being bandied around a little bit last week, the SaaS apocalypse. Just
yeah,
because,
yes. I saw the same
so,
thing.
so so maybe the thing is with the whole startup world and why I'm part of this whole startup horrors thing that I've started. A lot of the horror stories you don't see. I'm trying to shed light on a little bit of it because you don't see the 90% of the failures. Um, so maybe a lot of these companies are being wiped out at the moment, but you just don't see it. Maybe they are the invisible casualties of this thing.
It's a good point. Yeah, all the ones that are in the early phase that have failed or taken out of business, or it really used to be hard to try to take on an enterprise client. And so it's a lot easier to do that. But there's probably maybe more people are failing, or companies that are in that, like, initial seed or got seed money, like, and they're, not seeing the return, or they got PE money and, like, I don't know, they're being asked to do the impossible and they're not able to get market share. Like, I think you're probably right. There are a bunch of quiet failures. It is funny. I clicked on I try to keep my Instagram feed like not tech. It's like, I'm on like all these like plumbing reels of people fixing plumbing. I think that's like really interesting, like going
That
into
seems
really weird
awesome.
places. So it's like really good work, because I do a lot of like DIY stuff. I like physically working with my hands. And so,
Mm,
but I got into my algorithm started showing me these SaaS AI, like sort of tough stories. And I was like, I had to switch. I had to get back to like puppies, because I was like, I can't have my Instagram where my head is at a lot, which is, more on the LinkedIn world and the business side of the world. And just a lot of businesses struggling right now. I think you're right. I think the horror story is, for a lot of businesses, just this time and place. We are all trying to push through and keep our head above water and
mm,
see if, see where things are going to net out. But we had a client that was looking for a local firm. So they wanted to play a UX agency that was based in Chicago. And my co-founder was handling it. And he said to him, he's like, does anyone else exist? Like, we used to have 10 or 12 competitors in the city. I think we're down to 2.
really?
A lot of agencies have gone away over the very, very quietly. A lot of agencies have disappeared. And so I spend time thinking about the agency world and the consulting world more than I do the SaaS world, but I don't think people talk about it. But it was like 10 years ago, if a big agency went away, everyone talked about it.
Yeah.
Now I had this list of competitors from 2015, and like 2 URLs still work, and there are probably 50, firms on there. So it's
Wow.
like there are these quiet sort of closures, which is really kind of sad in the market. And I'm sure if it's affecting the agency world, as you said, it's affecting the SaaS and the software provider world.
I wonder how widespread that is, because thinking about that, even I don't know what you call it in America, but like the high street here, like where we had all the shops before,
Yeah.
like on the main street, I guess.
Main Street is kind of what we would call it.
Yeah, yeah. So like
Something
that used to
or
be,
something like that.
huh?
So like the mall.
Yeah, precisely. The mall, exactly, exactly. The mall. I mean, now you have like ghost malls, but like
Yeah.
now it's more prominent. You see it in the main street. It's first of all they came for the music shops, then they came for now it's just we just have the supermarket, the basically the food market, and that's it. Like everything else is Amazon, everything else has been shut down. Even the clothes shops seem to really have disappeared now that I think of it. So there is a quiet diminishing or consolidation of the
Yeah.
market.
Way to put it. That's a good way to put it. I do think it is a consolidation, and maybe some opting out along the way of like, this is too hard. This wasn't as difficult 10 years ago or
Yes.
5 years ago. Or I think people thought the boom that happened in tech during the pandemic was going to continue to ride, but it obviously came, crashing down in a very real way. So it is certainly a lot of consolidation. And I don't know if it's like things are getting more efficient. I don't know what the probably not from a retail perspective or from a tech perspective. It feels like there's some efficiency gains which have led to less humans needed to move the needle, and more hesitancy to spend, which is just I think a macroeconomic thing. So it's like, I always say from my view, and why I like having conversations like this, Joe, or just meeting people in the design community or in the small business community, is like, I have one very small lens and perspective. I try not to say that my experience is everyone else's, but it helps to share stories. I appreciate you doing this, because when you do share stories, people are like, yeah, I'm going through that, but maybe I'm going through it quietly. I mean, I have a co-founder, and we can vent to each other in a way that we're talking business owner to business owner. I have family members who run businesses, and we can commiserate. My brother owns bars, which is a total other business, but the liquor industry is going through another revolution where people aren't drinking as much. Younger people aren't drinking as much. So it's like, I can kind of complain there, but I like you having people share horror stories, because I think a lot more people share the pain, aren't maybe have a place to hear it or feel like somebody can sympathize or empathize with them. And we're all kind of going through a pretty dramatic period. I'll speak for tech in particular. Like, it's a pretty dramatic shift in the market, and it's a bit of a scary time. So I appreciate you having this vehicle for me to share, but also for other folks as well.
Yeah, I hope people gain some value out of it. But yeah, I hope they can see that it's like that for everyone. It's like that for everyone. But even when the times were good, even through the boom, there was a lot of bust in the boom as well, which is
Yeah.
the nature of the beast.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, so let's wrap it up there. Maybe we'll have you on again to speak about your personal experiences another time. But it was it's so fun to just talk about this crazy time that we're in, that everything else feels a little bit redundant.
I
We can
know. I'm
talk
with
about
you.
these. Yeah,
We all are in survival mode, I think.
yeah,
And you don't know you're in it until you step back and look at it. So I'm happy to come back on. I've honestly, I've enjoyed the conversation immensely, and appreciate what you're doing here.
yeah. It's been great to have you on. Okay, I'm going to end this recording, and then we'll stick around. We're going to have a chat.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Cool. Okay.